I wanted to start this video out a little different than the last two reaction response live stream edits that have been done because Mr. Gelvin himself from Gelvin Custom Guitars, he actually watched the live stream that was archived and left an awesome, very supportive comment. So I wanted to say thank you very much for watching it and approving of what was there. So for those of you who watch either the archived video or this edited video of that, I always want to make it clear that anytime I do one of these videos, I am not attacking anybody, I'm not trying to put anybody down, I'm simply watching stuff that pertains to guitar instruction, seeing what I agree with, talking about things maybe I don't agree with so much and why, and expand upon what was taught in the original video. And that's really what this video is about, expanding on what Gelvin taught in his video using a very useful scale shape or neck pattern that does reveal where all the notes are in every major or minor key. And when you understand how to use this, you can plug in bar chord or movable chord shapes so you can quickly put together chord progressions in every major key, which is also every minor key. Gelvin's video is great for those new to guitar and are just discovering all these little patterns and chords and whatnot, and are trying to make sense of this whole thing. Now, if you've already seen his video, or perhaps you are ready to take things a bit further, go more in depth with this chord theory, music theory stuff, well, here we go. Video number 3 of coattail riding. This time, Gelvin Custom Guitars, that's the name of the channel. Apparently this video is 4 years old almost, and I'm just now watching it. But hey, we might learn something interesting. Maybe I will already know what this pattern is going to be. But let's get into it.
So this is what I'm going to end up doing in this video. I'm going to show you a few patterns here that is going to end up helping your music theory, your playing ability, your understanding of music, your ability to transcribe, playing along with other people, songwriting, everything. It's going to end up helping you in so many different ways, and it's going to end up taking a lot of the mystery out of things that haunted me for a long time. And the very first thing we're going to end up doing is I'm going to show you a pattern that's going to show you every chord within a key and how you can figure it out with literally within seconds.
I've never been a fan of when people say every when it comes to chords, modes. I'm assuming he's going to be referring to your standard major, minor, possibly diminished chords. I don't know. But when it comes to every chord, I'm willing to bet that nobody on the planet knows by heart every single possible chord because there are way too many combinations out there. Just like when it comes to modes, and I've seen plenty of video titles, and maybe we'll watch one and react to it and give a response someday. Like when people say all 7 modes, it's like, well, there are more than 7 modes. There are 7 modes that come from the major scale, but what about harmonic minor? That's another 7 modes. What about Hungarian minor, one of my favorite modes, or scales, which is also technically a mode? Well, there's an additional 7 modes right there. So that's 21 modes with those 3 scales, and each of those modes has different interval combinations, and every interval combination can, well, not every interval combination, but you could get a lot more chords when you deal with exotic scales. Just for example, we're talking like every chord. If we're going through like 7th chords, so let's look at 7th chords, A minor. So We have your A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, also known as half diminished 7, C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G 7. But harmonic minor, we wouldn't have A minor 7 anymore. We would have A minor major 7. We would have the B minor 7 flat 5 again. We would not have a C major 7 anymore. We would have a C major 7 sharp 5. D minor 7 would be present again. The E minor 7 is gone. We would have an E7. Let's see. Yes, we would have F major 7 again. And G7's gone. Now we would end up having a fully diminished G sharp, or a G sharp 7. Alright, so anyway, back to what I was talking about. Yeah, like the whole every chord or every scale, it's like nobody on earth knows every single possible chord. You could understand theory enough that you read a chord name and you can dissect it. And you're like, okay, well the chord is saying this, this, and this. Or you could know enough about theory where you have a crazy chord with all kinds of weird notes going on, and then you know enough theory that you can put together a good name to explain what it is you're doing. But yeah, the whole every chord, nobody knows every chord. Nobody can. There are way too many combinations out there.
What we're going to end up doing is I'm going to show you a pattern that's going to show you every chord within a key and how you can figure it out with literally within seconds. Every chord within any key, doesn't make a difference. So this pattern is really simple. I'm just going to use starting here on the A just for the sake of location, because it's easier for you guys to see. But this is the pattern I want you to remember. On the E, doesn't matter what fret, but wherever you start, the one right underneath it, and then we're going to skip one, and then we're going to end up basically doing this. So it's essentially like doing a power chord, right? But we also add that note. So in this particular case, the notes that we would be hitting would be, okay?
That's A, D, and E.
Okay, that pattern. We need to memorize that pattern, because what we're going to do is we're going to do that pattern here, skip 2 frets, and now we're here, and we're going to do it again. And then from there, what we're going to do is with this little guy, we're just going to end up putting it right up here. In this case, on the 4th. So it basically is like this. Okay, that's the pattern. Very easy to remember, because nothing changes except for that guy right there.
So yeah, starting it with A, he's keeping it in the key of A, is what it looks like. And that goes down into the relative minor, F sharp minor. So yeah, if you're looking at it from the major scale perspective, just like Rockstar Jazz Cat said in the YouTube, that would be the 1, the 4, the 5, that would be the 6, the 2, the 3, the 7.
The very first 3 that we hit, major. The next 3 we hit, minor. The last one, diminished. So here is exactly how this is going to end up working.
I predicted correctly. He's talking about the majors, the minors, and diminished. Most people don't know diminished. A major, D major, E major, F sharp minor, B minor, C sharp minor, G sharp diminished. Let's see, what's he going to go to next? And so far, again, like any key, if this is based off of a major key, yeah, we can find quickly the notes or chords of major keys And if we're talking about just like your basic triad chords, your major, minor, diminished, sure. But man, there's so many more options out there. I think this guy was just trying to put together a pretty simple lesson just to help people find chords quickly. I'm guessing he's going to use a lot of bar chords because they're movable. Very handy to learn. So I'm not trying to sound like a jackass, being like, put this guy down. I'm just, offering more information and informing the viewers, like, hey, there's a lot more stuff out there that anyone could really, truly know, because, good Lord, the combinations are seemingly endless.
Working. So in this particular case, we end up having an A. I'm starting here. So because I'm starting here on the A, means that this is in the key of A major. Okay, these are the chords in the key of A major. Now what we have to do is we have to shoot down. Boom, boom, bang. And the next three are going to end up being our minor chords, right? So from here we go boom, bang, boom. We have our F sharp minor. And then underneath that we have our B minor. And then we have our C sharp minor. Okay? Now remember that pattern, we have boom, bang, boom, then we shoot up here. That's our diminished. This little guy right here is going to be our diminished. And so, that nasty sounding chord,
Is that what he's doing? So, diminished. It sounded like what he played was this. Which, holding that, you can certainly hit the G sharp on the high E string as well. Problem. The three notes that make a G sharp diminished are G sharp, B, and D. G sharp, B, and D. That's it. That's it. You can duplicate those notes as many times as you want in different octaves, mix it up any which way, but those three notes, and only those three notes, make your basic G sharp diminished. You add any other note, it's another chord. And it sounds like he's hitting an F. I need to listen to that again. If he is hitting an F, he's created a chord that, well, that would actually make it a fully, like a full diminished 7. That makes it a G sharp diminished 7. Can you do that as like a chord substitute? Sure. If you like the sound of it, why not? When it comes down to it, if you like the sound of anything, do whatever the hell you want. But it's not a diminished. It's more than diminished. It's like, yeah, it's so diminished it has a double flat 7. Holy moly. So yeah, I think he's doing a fully diminished 7th chord, G sharp diminished 7 here. Which is in harmonic minor, not natural minor. But let's continue. I want to double check and make sure I'm hearing what he's playing correctly, because I don't want to be saying incorrect shit either.
that's our diminished chord.
Yes, that's exactly what he's doing. So that, it still works okay. You can play diminished 7 there if you'd like. It still sounds appropriate, I feel. But if you want to play just a G sharp diminished chord or a diminished chord that's movable starting on the low E string, I recommend don't bar this thing. Don't bar it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Why? Even though you could, like almost like 99% of the time, whenever I show a student this chord, they end up barring it and they do this. And then they hit this note on the B string that is not part of the chord and is not part of the key that they're learning either. So that's why I recommend don't bar this. Use 4 fingers, and basically you start index finger, and we're going with the G sharp diminished because that's what's in the video. Index finger on the 4th fret of the low E. Ring finger 5th fret of the A string. Pinky finger 6th fret of the D string. middle finger, 4th fret of the G string. So that is your root note. There's your flat 5th, root note again, flat 3rd. And anywhere you play that shape is diminished.
So those are all of the chords in the key of A major. So these are our majors, these are our minors, that's our diminished, and this works pretty much anywhere. So up here in the key of C major, we find the C, boom, and we do our majors. First 3 are majors, and then this is a C, F, G, right? And we go boom, bang, boom, right? And now we're on the A minor, D minor, E minor. And of course, we end up having our handy dandy diminished right here, which is B. Now you say, okay, well that tells us all the chords for a major, right? It doesn't matter what major it is, as long as we keep to that pattern, it's always going to be true. But what about minors? What about minors? You're not telling me anything about minors. Well, this is a good thing about this pattern. Majors always have what's known as a relative minor. So it's basically the exact same notes, it's just where do you start, right? So if we're up here on the C, and that's our major, but we're starting up here, we just have to reverse that for the minor. And what is the relative minor? Well, right here, remember how I said you just go and you skip 2? This is our relative minor. The very first minor is our relative minor.
Yes, that is true. If you want to find the relative minor of any major key, you go down a step and a half. So that's a whole step plus a half step. So, or it might be easier to look at it as going half step then whole step, because that actually keeps the notes in key. So yes, from that C note, if you go down a half step followed by a whole step, that's your relative minor. Just like key of A, if you go down a half step, then a whole step, F sharp is the relative minor of that.
No matter what it is. So if I'm sitting here and once again, and I'm playing an A major, and I want to know the relative minor of this A right here, skip 2, boom, it's right here. It's a G flat or an F sharp. That's the relative minor. So if somebody says, hey, I'm going to be playing in the key of G minor, we just reverse what we've done. So we start with the minors, right? We have, of course, our little diminished right here. And then from here, this is where we would end up having our majors. Because a G minor is the relative minor of this guy right here. So by knowing that pattern, you already know the minors as well. It's just instead of starting up here and going down, you start down here and you move up. That's that. So now you know all the chords in every key simply by that simple pattern. One of the things that I had the hardest time with was trying to learn or figure out what notes you play over a particular chord. When I was trying to learn all this stuff, man, it seemed so hard. And every time that there was a video, there would always be some jackass saying, oh, here's an A minor pentatonic. And it's like, you know something? That doesn't help me. The only thing that that tells me is if somebody's sitting here and they're playing an A minor, I can play over it. That's the only thing that that ever told me. And the people that teach that, I honestly think just don't really know what the hell they're talking about, what they're teaching. They you know, those that can do, those who can't teach, which, you know, what's my excuse? There you go. And there's nothing wrong with that box. There's nothing wrong with the pentatonic box. But you need to understand, if this is an A minor pentatonic, what that also suggests is in the key of A minor. So once again, key of A minor also is what? What's the relative major? C. So it's not only an A minor pentatonic, but it's also a C major. Okay? What about the notes?
So yes, 100% agree with what he's saying there. Your A minor pentatonic absolutely fits in the key of A minor, which also fits in the key of C major, for sure. Now, I highly recommend that you learn the 3 notes per string scale shapes. You can do the cage system ones as well, but I like the 3 notes per string because you always have 3 notes each string, and you end up having a combination of 3 patterns, really. What are those patterns? Well, they get doubled up in your major scale shape. So let's use the key of C, because those are your natural notes. Good place to start if you don't know this stuff. But basically, from your index finger, you got a whole step, so 2 frets, 2 frets. So that's one pattern. The whole step, and then you have the half step, whole step. So going up from your index finger, half step, whole step. And then the third pattern that you use in these scale shapes, you go up from your index finger, again, a whole step, then a half step. Like, yeah, if you're going through all the scale stuff, like, well, let's just call it, I'm just going to say whole, half, or half whole. Like the Dorian shape going next, you'd have your whole half, and then whole, half whole. Phrygian, you'd have your half whole, half, whole. Sounds like I'm Santa Claus. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, ho, ho! So you would have your half whole, half, whole. Santa Claus. Lydian, you go whole, half whole, half, whole. Mixolydian, start with your Santa Claus stuff. Whole. Half whole, half. Aeolian, whole, whole again. Half whole. And then the Locrian shape, half whole, whole half, whole. So see, it's just those 3 things just stacked in different ways over and over again. So I think it's a little easier to memorize shapes like that versus just doing the cage system, because like you totally could. Like one of the first scales I learned was an A minor scale like this. But then you got to remember, well, what string has only the 2 notes? You can also do the C major scale like this. A lot of people learn a major scale this way. But then you got 2 strings that have only 2 notes. So then you got to remember that. Nothing wrong with it. It's not a bad idea to learn both the 3 notes per string shapes and the condensed, I like to call them condensed shapes because you're not stretching anywhere, but they're also called the cage system shapes. As long as you're learning the notes, you're learning the fretboard, through scales that you can use well, you're good. Use whatever ones you want to use.
Well, the thing is the notes are also the same in that pattern, but we can also figure out the notes in another way. And this one I call every other, okay? So basically every other fret, every other note. And then we go underneath and we do the same thing. Okay, and then we do the flat of whatever we started with. So if we're here on the C, it'd basically be like this. Okay, and then that pattern tells us all the notes in the key of wherever we start, right?
That's basically how I show my students this kind of thing he was going on about. He basically played the first 6 notes of a 3 notes per string scale shape. And then there's your 7th note there, just an octave lower than this. It's basically just a half step below your root note. And you end up getting the same thing. Major, minor, major chord, minor chord, diminished. So learning that, the way that Gelvin has shown his pattern is fantastic for quickly going from major chords to minor chords and diminished. But you can do the same thing here. Just visualizing it, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because you're, again, basing it on a major scale. 1, 4, 5, always major. Your 2, 3, and 6, minor. 7th is diminished. And that's just your triad stuff.